Hi, this is BethWe in the Koinonia Kitchen, and I'm titling this podcast, Me First and Then You. You know, I had a history, and my history was a little bit bent. Some of us would call it broken. Pieces of my past that didn't fit together, and I was living in a way that didn't really represent who I wanted to be. So that was the first step. I had to get honest. I had to get honest about what was going on in my life because I was getting desperate. I wanted something to change, but I didn't want to do the work to make it change. I didn't want to have to deal with it. I didn't want to have to look at it. Anything that I had successfully hidden, I wanted it to stay under wraps. I didn't want to have to tell on myself. But I was powerless. I couldn't move on with my own understanding. I needed some help. And powerlessness led me to that place. It led me to a place of surrender. I only surrendered because there was nothing left that I could do on my own. Like I said, I was powerless. I needed someone or something with power. And that's why I surrendered. I had to open my mind to the possibility and the potential of a higher power, a God that I could understand, the God of my understanding, a God who would live with me and help me and teach me how to be who He invented me to be, who He created me to be, who He saw in His mind's eye. I thought back to like art classes when I was in high school. And in your mind's eye, you were supposed to create and then put it down with your paint or with your clay or with whatever you were using, whatever medium you were using. You were supposed to create it first in your mind's eye. And I realized there was a God out there who had created me. And every part of me was intentional. And parts of me that I was embarrassed about, I didn't want to talk about. I didn't want the world to see, but they were part of me too. And for me to live with purpose and on purpose, for me to be a cog in this big machine called life, for me to have my place, I had to start to embrace what was there since creation, who I was. My biggest problem, I think, wasn't that I couldn't believe in God. I did believe in God. It wasn't that my life was such a shambles that I couldn't imagine it being fixed. I could imagine it being fixed. My biggest problem was I didn't know how to structure it. I was not good at structure. I knew that in different times in my life when there was structure, I excelled. But creating my own structure so that I could live my own life, I didn't adult very well. I was good at as a kid because they gave me structure and I followed the rules and I got through. But as an adult, where I could create whatever the rules would be, not so much. And my lack of structure became chaos. And the chaos looked like, I don't know, like one of those rooms in a hoarder's show. It looked like there was just all this junk all over my head, and I didn't know how I would ever organize it or make it work or create a life with it. And that's when I walked into the 12 steps. I got to be honest, walking into the 12 steps, seeing 12 things that I had to do on a wall, I was able to, for the first time, look at something that might give my adult life structure. The suggestions on the wall weren't like too demanding. They were things I could do, one thing at a time, maybe taking a little while to get my head around it or to get my heart into it, because not everything looked easy, but everything looked possible. Maybe that's the word I need to tell you, possible. It's not that it's definite, but it's possible. And when opening my mind to the possibility of finding a structure that would help me recreate my life as an adult, I was kind of excited. I wanted it. I had to use that history I talked about as a guide to understand myself. I had to look back at my record and see when I did well and when I didn't do well. I had to see what triggered me to be afraid, what triggered me to be joyful. I had to look and get to know what my history could tell me about myself. I think part of the reason I never looked at my history as a tool is because I had some trauma in my history. They say trauma is the gateway drug. I believe that. It sets me up to want to run and hide, or to fight or to flee. I was always fleeing when it came to trauma. I didn't want to fight trauma. I didn't want to become a non-entity. I just wanted to get away from it. I wanted to deny it. I wanted to avoid it. I wanted to pretend like it never happened. But when I did that, that's where the chaos came from. That's why my head was full of chaos. Because I can't deny my past. I just have to accept it and learn how to live with it. And the best way I've found of accepting my past, especially the hard parts, is to learn from it. And so these 12 steps that were on this wall gave me a structure to learn from my own history. It wasn't like I had to read a book that told me what to do or how somebody else did it. I really just had to try to do what other people had done, but do it for myself. Do it with the information about my own self and see if it changed anything. I had to bring the trauma into the light. I had to get honest at yet a more deep level than I had ever been honest before. I had to quit pretending like some of the stuff that happened to me was okay, or was negligible, or was lost in the past. It was still with me, and I made decisions based on it without even knowing that it had a finger on the trigger. I never even knew there was a gun in my head. Not a real gun for anybody that got caught there. Just in my head. Every once in a while, this trauma would trigger, and it would like blow up in my mind. And I'd run. I'd run from whatever happened to make me relive that. The healing, that was from the higher power. God was involved in the healing. Again, He knew what He created me for. He knew that I could get better. And He knew that this structure, these 12 steps, would help me do it. As I worked these steps, I was growing in understanding. I was understanding more about myself. And as I understood myself, I could understand other people better. I knew the things that made me tick. One of the things they taught me about was my instincts, that I have instinctive drives, and that they drive me, literally, they drive me to get them accomplished. They called them the 3 S's: sex, security, society. I want all 3 of those. I was created to want all 3 of those. There's nothing wrong with wanting all 3 of those. Sex, normal instinct. Security, both emotional and material. I was created to want to feel safe. Society, I was created to interact with other people and to do so successfully. We could build on each other's creative elements and we could get more done than I could do on my own. I was growing in understanding. I learned about my emotions, that they're indicators. They're not always right. Sometimes I get a bad feeling. It's not always a right feeling, but it's a feeling that indicates I should look at something more closely. I had emotions that made me feel happy. Not always right, but I should look at what sparked the happiness. I came to understand that happiness wasn't a goal. It was a result of how I lived. If I lived well, if I lived into my creational design, I was happy most of the time. And when I did things that was against my highest good, when I self-sabotaged, when I got selfish, when I sought only my own ends and dismissed other people, happiness wasn't around on those days. Self-examination became a regular part of my life. I looked at my wins and my losses each day. I didn't just look at my history. I was creating a track record every day I was alive. And now I had a new track record. I had a new track record since when I started to allow the structure of the 12 steps to invade my life. And it was fun to self-examine and see what makes me tick, what makes me uncomfortable, what makes me happy, what makes me want to run, what makes me want to join. Where do I feel like I belong? These were all things that came from daily self-examination. And then the healing. I really tried to heal myself, but I couldn't. I'm not the healer, but there is one who has that power, and we ask that you find him now. I needed the healer. I needed to go to God and say, help me become who you meant for me to be. Peel away the stuff that's all fake or garbage or not working. Help me get to where you want me to be. That's when the watershed moment happened for me. A watershed moment, it means it's a turning point or an event that changes the way you think. It marks a significant change. There's a before a watershed and an after a watershed. And that watershed moment for me was when I became right-sized, when I let God be God, and I got off his throne, and I got out of his way, and I became just another bozo on the bus. It was a watershed moment because it changed my life, and my history moving forward from that moment, from knowing that God is God, and I don't have to try to fill those shoes, that I don't have to make every decision, that I don't have to be perfect, that I don't have to always know what's going on. That was a watershed moment. You know, the watershed, the meaning comes from a geography term where water flows into two separate basins. And so I had the way I thought before that, and I had the way I thought after that. And it's a metaphoric realization that the old was gone and the new was upon me. From that place, I had to up the examination. I had to look for patterns in my relationships to see where my self-centeredness had affected the people around me. Not just the people I loved. Oh boy, they were affected. But not just them. I affected people I worked with, people I went to school with. If I played on a sports team with someone, they were affected. I affected pretty much everyone I came in contact with. And there were patterns that I used. I'll give you an example. I remember as a kid learning to play softball, and I could never get a hit. I really wanted to whack that ball, and I couldn't get a hit. So I quit playing softball. And I realized that I preferred to keep my social instinct fed, to make sure that other people thought well of me. I would only do things that I was good at. And softball fell by the wayside. Now, maybe I haven't missed too much, having only played softball 4 times. But maybe I missed some friendships that I would have had. Maybe I missed a traveling team that just went to different places that I could have seen and learned from. I'll never know, because the pattern, I quit because I wasn't good at something. What patterns have you developed? Those are the things I'm wanting you to think about right now. Are you dominant? Are you dependent? Are you critical? Are you a people pleaser? What things do you do so other people will feel good around you or feel that you're in charge? There's different things we do, and I had to look at my patterns. And then when I had hurt people with these patterns, I had to start making amends. You know, a lot of people think making amends is about saying you're sorry. It has nothing to do with saying you're sorry. Though sometimes you'll say you're sorry when you're making amends, but an amend is an opportunity to make things right. It is not saying you're sorry. Saying you're sorry to someone probably won't make it right. What can you do to make it right? I always use the 19th, the women's right to vote as the one I use. The people in the government didn't say, ladies, we are sorry that you can't vote. The Constitution is very clear. Only men can vote. You have some good ideas, and possibly you would have changed the course of history, but the Constitution says no. That's not what happened. They amended the Constitution. They wrote the 19th Amendment, giving women the right to vote. They made it right because they thought it was wrong. So what history do we have? When I'm looking back at my history, did I ever steal from someone? Do I owe someone money? I need to pay that back and get it clear in my head. Did I steal someone's reputation by gossiping about them? I need to make that right. I need to do what I need to make it right. For the people that I just stole their peace of mind because I went through that crazy time in my history, I need to make that right. That might be one place I'll say I'm sorry. But I won't just say I'm sorry. I'll say I'm sorry, and I'm working one day at a time so that never happens again. I want to make it right. And as I learned how to do these things, these 12 little suggestions hanging on a wall, I started to live that way, one day at a time. I used spiritual principles to guide me and tell me what I needed to do, to live one day at a time, and to be true to who I was. And you know what happened? Me first, then you. I started to look at you differently because I was different. I started to see things that used to bother me and realize they could be changed in you if you wanted them to be. And I looked for the fear. What were you doing that for? What trauma could have been in your past? What history did you have that you don't want to look at? I started to see you like I see me. Me first, then you? Yeah, I had to get to know myself before I could have any other relationship with someone else. You know, when the Master walked the earth, he told us to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. For me, the second part was so hard because I didn't love myself. So how could I love you? But these 12 little steps, this little bit of structure taken on by a willing adult, me, changed everything. And now I can love you the way I love myself because I understand why I didn't love myself. I understand how honesty about my history can change everything. It can change my future. It can change the way I view the world. It can change everything. So first me, then you. That's what we did in this little talk. I think it's your turn. Why don't you look at those 12 suggestions hanging on walls all over the world? Why don't you consider what they mean? The first one says we admitted we were powerless, that our lives had become unmanageable. What does powerlessness look like? It looks like I have nowhere to go. I don't know how to get out of this. I can't make the change that I need to make. It just keeps blowing up in my face. What does unmanageability look like? It looks like I'm totally powerless, and now there's all these consequences of that powerlessness. Unmanageability is a function of powerless. If you're powerless, there's going to be unmanageability. You're going to break out in problems here and there over whatever it is you're trying to control that you have no control over. The second step, they ask us to come to believe in a power greater than a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. He could. Do you believe that? The power greater than yourself, is that freaking you out? I had to come to believe that there was help available. That was the first thing. I had to get that hope that help was available. And then that took me to the third step. Made a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understood Him. You know, that hope that help was available became faith that it would be available for me. That's what happened in step 3. I made a decision to trust that the people who have worked these 12 steps did it for a reason, and that the reason that they're still out there going around the world helping people is because they actually do work. I loved that they put "as we understood him" after the name God, because in my lifetime, I've understood God in different ways. I've understood him as I grow in relationship. I get to understand him in new and different ways. It's kind of like a relationship with a romantic partner. When you first meet, you might flirt a little bit, but you're not really telling everything. But as you come together and decide to commit to each other and create a life together, and as that partner becomes your best friend and the first one you want to tell everything to, your words become softer, your jokes become funnier, your snuggles become closer. And that's what it's like with the higher power. So as I understood him just meant that I know it's going to grow and change, just like any relationship. Once I made that decision to turn my will and my life over to his care, I was asked to make a searching and fearless moral inventory of myself. That was the fourth thing. That was kind of hard, but when I heard about the instincts, it made it easier. I understood that sometimes the things that I did, I was just trying to get an instinctive drive met. Like the social instinct, that could be a problem. If I feel like I don't fit in somewhere, I'm going to do stuff to fit in. I'm going to do whatever it is that you're doing. Not because I want to do it, I want to fit in. That's a drive. It's a drive inside me. So I was able to look at some of the mistakes I had made in my life and understand why I made them. And somehow it wasn't a question of my morals decaying. It was a question of wanting that need to be met so much that I was willing to put my morals on hold for that. That's the moral inventory. And as I talked about what I thought was wrong in my past, I realized that I knew what was right, and that I always had that conscience, that moral code inside me, and that I was going to be okay if I could learn how to live in that. So I brought that inventory to another person. And in step 5, I admitted to God, to myself, and then to this other person, the nature of my wrongs. It's not that I did the things I did. It's why I did them. What was I willing to do to get my needs met? What were you willing to do to get your needs met? Did you steal? Did you lie? Did you cheat? You're not alone. People all over the world are doing those things to get their needs met. But I don't want to keep doing them. I want to live free and clear in my conscience and in my heart. And so I became entirely ready to have God remove the defects of character that called me to do those things. That's what step 6 is. And I got to tell you, I have to live this step all the time, because it's really common for me to think of myself first. And it's uncommon when I think of others first. And that's what I'm called to do. So we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Led me right into step 7, where I humbly asked him to do it. And I humbled myself. I became right-sized. I knew he was God and I wasn't. And I knew that his plan was going to be okay, because I believe my higher power is good. If you're struggling with step 7, it could be because you've never quantified the goodness of your higher power. Do that. Talk about it with somebody. Say, how do I know God is good? Look at your track record. When God was moving, was it for your good? Look at it. Oh, don't get me wrong. God allows bad things to happen to good people, but he always uses them for their good. He always turns that around. Let's look at addiction for an example. Addiction is a horrible way to live. And God allows it if that's what the choice of the person is, until they lose their choice. And then, if they seek recovery, he steps in, and that broken piece of their past can become a mighty purpose for their future. And they can change their entire lives with God. They might never have sought to change their life, except for that horrible trial that they went through. So after I asked him to remove my shortcomings, I look around at the world and there's all these people. And I realize that my shortcomings hurt a lot of people. Not just the people I love, but the people I worked with, the people I played sports with, the people I went to school with. So I made a list of the persons that I knew I had harmed, and I became willing to make amends to them all. And to do that, I had to see the things I did systematically over and over to all people. Like if I was uncomfortable, maybe I took control. Maybe I'm a control freak. Maybe I want to be the boss. Maybe I want to tell you what to do. Maybe I want it to be my way or the highway. That's a shortcoming, guys. And it's a pattern shortcoming. It's a pattern of behavior that repeats even though it doesn't bring you joy or happiness. That's what I was looking for when I made that list. And then I went out with that list of people and I made direct amends to them. Yeah, direct. That means usually face to face. I made direct amends to them wherever I could, not whenever I could. That's a funny thing. People read that wrong a lot. It's not whenever. Whenever leaves the direct amends up to my timing. But when I say wherever, that leaves the timing up to God. And wherever it happens, it happens. And I make that direct amend, unless by doing that, I would injure them or someone else. So step 9 reads, I made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. And that kind of got me on the right footing with my friends, with my family, with my neighbors, with my workmates, with the people around me. But I had to continue to take personal inventory. And that's what step 10 prompted me to do. I continued to take personal inventory, and when I was wrong, I admitted it. Right in the moment sometimes. I'll tell you what, if you're in the middle of a lie and you realize you're lying and you stop and you say, wait a minute, what I'm saying isn't true. Let me make it right. People hear that, but not only that, you hear that. And you don't want to be in that situation a lot, so you make a change. You continue to take personal inventory. When you're wrong, you promptly admit it, and it changes the way you interact with yourself and with others. It becomes easier to be true to your own self. And then God. So I seek to improve my relationship with God. How? Through prayer and meditation. And I try to contact Him and be mindful that He's right there, right available for me right now. And I pray for knowledge of His will for us, for me, for you, for the world, and the power to carry out my part. Because I have a part. I have a part in peace on earth. I have a part in my own character defect awareness. I have a part in this world. I play a role, and I seek that I will know His will and do it. And that's what step 11 teaches me to do. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve my conscious contact with God as I understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for me and the power to carry that out. And then what happened? Working these 12 steps, I had a spiritual awakening. It's like my spirit was sleepwalking through life. So I had this spiritual awakening because of these steps. And I try to carry this message to other people that might be sleepwalking. I'm like a spiritual alarm clock in some people's lives. I try to wake them up because these principles, these 12 steps, these 12 spiritual principles changed my life. And it woke me up. And it's created this life beyond my wildest dreams. And step 12 says that. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, I tried to carry this message to other powerless people and to practice these principles in all my affairs. So where are you? Do you want a new way of life? The 12 steps might be the ticket. I told you how it worked for me first. And I'm telling you, then you. They're there for you. They're ready for you. They'll help you. And your life will improve. Why don't you give them a try? It's your turn. I hope you're feeling better because you had a listen. Good Seed Podcast is powered by the BethWe nonprofit ministry based in Vero Beach, Florida. Our goal is to start the uncomfortable conversations that turn complacency into action and despair into hope. Connect communicate, and thrive with us. Check us out online at BethWe.com.